Hello and welcome to another CAD Swift video. In this episode we're going to be helping a client implement our window and door tool for Archicad, Infinite Openings. The client has been through a few other providers and cannot achieve what they need through those tools, so has now come to us and is really liking what they see in Infinite Openings and the potential with the component catalogues to organise their projects and quality control their content. However, they're a little overwhelmed by the complexity of the tool and need some help getting started. This is a common thing. The tool is quite complex. It can do quite a lot, so therefore it just by nature is complex. However, with our component catalog features, we can set up all your standard arrangements, styles, and all that sort of thing. So basically, you can just plug and play, drop the library in, and then start just placing your typical arrangements. So that's what we're going to do for this client. We're going to set up their catalogues for them. They've sent us a series of information, the most important piece of which is sort of the template they've been working on, or one of their older templates that they're going to migrate to a new template. And it's a typical sort of setup. Most of you do templates like this where you place your standard arrangements. People can then use the eyedropper to just basically pick up these elements and run with them. This is not something that is necessary in Infinite Openings because we have the component catalog. So having these templates with all these sort of panels, you can see this client's also got access to Eric Bobro's master template, which they quite like. And they've been trying to use other tools up here from other providers which are not working for them. So they want me to replicate these elements. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to take you through that. We'll just do sort of one example in this video. I'm not going to take you through every little one because there'll be far too much repetition. And then once I've done showing the examples, I'll develop the rest for the client and then I'll send them off their library with their catalogue. So this one is actually an interesting scenario for another reason. They want their catalogues set up for all their typical configurations that they use. So this is a custom catalogue of just generic configurations. However, these configurations are all based on manufacturers' products, and they've given us the list of the products that they use. So the manufacturer is called Starline Windows. I believe this is a Canadian company. I haven't looked into that. And they're using these first four series, the 25, 6000, 71 and 8500 series. So I've had a bit of a look over these. I can't really get too much sizing information off this website. They do have a lot of information, but not quite everything I need. And we're not trying to do an exact replica of this because we have not been engaged by the manufacturer to generate their content. So we're not going to even pass this off as being their content. We'll just use the sizing that the client has set in Archicad, and we'll assume that sizing is relevant to these products, and we'll have a quick look at the products to just make sure things correlate. But we will not be doing the full detail of the frame extrusions and things like that. This will be all rectangular extrusions. We could very easily do that, and if the manufacturer is willing to come on board, then we could definitely put all of their details and all of their specification data within these catalogues, and then you could be working with a real live product. And if you want to see it only as rectangular extrusions, we have that function in our model view options control, so it doesn't matter how detailed it is, you can see it as a simple element. However, we're not doing that now. We're not doing the specific details of the manufacturer's products. We're just setting up this catalog for the end user for their own private use. So let's get started. We'll go back to their template, and we're going to start with this sliding door family here. I shouldn't say family, that's a Revit term. I didn't mean it in any sort of a Revit term. I meant group of associated elements or similar elements. Definitely no Revit. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this wall because I want to place an element. I'll probably end up placing all these elements, my own version of them. I'm just going to go into the door tool because this is going to be a door. It doesn't really matter. I can set up these catalogues in the door tool or the window tool or the skylight or the curtain wall panel tool version of infinite openings. The databases are all the same. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I need to put in the configurator password. We're going to stick with the local because we're just working with the databases in the loaded library at the moment. We haven't moved these databases to a remote location server or anything like that. We're just working locally. I'm going to do a download all just to make sure I've got the latest here. So that'll download all my databases. There's 30 odd components which each have their own database within this element. If you're not familiar with this tool just yet, you've got your assembly database, which is a combination of your design, opening and fixture components. There's half a dozen elements in design, there's half a dozen or more elements in fixtures, 10 or something, and then there's openings which also have a whole series of components with their own catalogues, so you get fairly detailed with this element. Anyway, back to the start. So we've got our password, we've downloaded the latest databases. I've actually cleaned these databases ready for the client. I've just left one example in there, but that will get deleted as well. So what we need to do is we need to start setting up the elements, general components, it's general styles. Now we've created a new view of the interface which we call the designer, and it basically filters this menu down into the key elements. So the key elements being the shape and size, the panel arrangement, the frame, and the mullion. That's probably not that key an element, but still is fairly crucial. And then the openings, so the opening type and the panel, and that's just basically the panel style, so that'll allow you to change the panel style. So if we can go and focus on these elements, we can get most of what we need to generate this content. So the first thing we need to do is we need to have a look at our example element. I'm not very familiar with these tools, so I don't know exactly where to look, but I have been looking around here, so I've worked out how to get the casing. So we can see they've got casing on, internal and external, and we'll get the sizes of those. More importantly, we need to go to the frame. So this gives us our frame size. So we've got a 1.5 inch frame width and 6 1/4 depth. And this is that's a glass positioning, I think, or that's the positioning of that element up there. And then there's our leaf information. So 1.5 leaf with a half glass, looks like it's centered there. And then the borders of the leaf. So it's a single glass, no mullions, and we've got a lower, upper, and side frames. That basically covers the general settings of this element and general style. So I'll just go in and I'll set them now. We'll start in this menu and we'll start setting it up. So shape and size is going to be variable. Panel arrangement is typically going to be variable. At the moment it's just a single panel because it's just one operable element within it, but actually I think there's a highlight above there, so we'll have to do something with that. Let me just double check. Okay, so we've got highlight windows and sizes 12 by 8. Okay, so let's go in again, shape and size 12 by 8. The shape and size, we can save this. There doesn't look like there's a couple 12 by 8s, 15 by 8s, so we will save this. Often you don't need to be saving the size. If it's a fairly simple configuration, you might want the size to be completely flexible. But you can also save it with arrange. So let's just go to the shape and size page. We can click down here and it gives us the shape and size in a very simplified form, or we can go to the page. Okay, so we've got an 8 by 12 and we've got min and max. So we can set these as min and max components as well. So you could set this one shape and have these ranges and that could cover your whole thing, or you could set an individual size for each of these elements, whichever works best for you. So let's go, we can save this here. Oh, we've got the designer menu on. You can't open those when you've got the designer menu on. I'll have to fix that. Anyway, so we'll save it here. So we're going to call this one the 8500 because that's what the series is. This comes from the Starline, is that what it's called? Yeah, Starline windows, the vinyl sliding patio door. So naming it the 8500 will give a good reference to this company, and I'll just set this as the 8x12. Upload, download. So when you upload that, it sends it to the database, but it doesn't have that information yet in this object. So then you've got to import that database back into this object, so it goes into where the data is stored in this object. You can then go select it from the menu, and that locks down all the typical settings. If you try to change it, it goes to the minimum. See, we've got these ranges here. Okay, so that's because we set a range. We can, if I unlock this, set this back up to 8, 12, 12 and 12, upload, download, and you don't have to go into the list to select it. You can actually just hit this lock button and it'll nominate this element, provided that element is actually in the list. Okay, so now you can see that these are locked. We can't get them beyond those values. Okay, so the panel arrangement. The panel arrangement in this 8x12, we had a highlight. So this is going to be our 8508 highlight. Okay, so what we're going to need to do here is we're going to need, actually I'll leave that equal on for a second. We're going to need 2 rows, and they're going to need to not be equal. And the bottom row, we'll have to measure. Six, 9. Okay, so that's our panel arrangement. Now we can upload that. Upload. So let me just show you this. It's not actually available in this list yet because I've uploaded it to the database, but I haven't brought that data back into the object. So I have to hit the download button first. Now it's there. So I can select it, or I can just click the lock button to select it. Okay, so that is now locked, and it's locked including the sizes. So I should have mentioned that there's an apply sizes. So you can lock the arrangement of 1 column by 2 rows, or you can also lock it with its sizes. So if we have a look now, if I try and change this to 5, you can see it won't let me to change it. However, if I had turned this off, unlock that, turn that off, and update this, then these sizes will still be editable, but the columns and rows will not. Okay, let's just lock that element down. Now the frame. So we've been in to measure the frame as well. We found it's 6 1/4 deep and 1 1/2 wide. And the glass, so to view the glass we need to go to the frame page. The glass was 1/2 inch, and we've got it set so that it's 5 inch off the front because it was 3/4 inch off the back. Okay, so let's go back to our menu here, and we're just going to upload this frame as the 8500 frame. Upload, download, and lock. The mullions, they will basically be a match frame. So we've got a match frame in here, so we'll just do that. We don't need to set up another 8500. Unless the mullion is a specific profile that's different to the frame, then we will need to set that up separately. Okay, so that's the basic design elements. We now need to go in and set our panel style up. So I'll just go into the door panel component here, go to the door panel page. That's the right type of panel. We wanted a single window. We had 4 inch on the size, but this was 7 3/4, I believe. Not 7 foot. I have to work out how to write in this system because it's definitely not something I'm used to. Did that work? Yeah, okay, that worked. Alright, I'm just learning how to type in Imperial. Okay, so that's our panel arrangement. The glass, we had a 1 1/2 thick panel. I think we had half glass, and it was centered. Okay, so that is our panel style. We can upload that as well. So let's just go back to our main components page. The name we've chosen for the door panel is the 8500. So just upload, download, and lock. Okay, now you can actually do this on the door page. If I go back to the door page, there is a tab over here that gives you access to the catalogue. However, when you've got the designer menu on, you can't access that tab. So you need to turn the designer menu off in order to access that tab. I'll fix that and make that work a different way, but that's the way it is for now. So you can do it here. You can also, as you can see in these examples, you can provide images for all these elements. So I will do that. To provide an image, all you have to do is create an image file. It can be JPEG, bitmap, TIFF, and name it exactly as you would name this element and load it into Archicad. So if I load an image into Archicad called 8500, then it's going to populate all the 8500s. So it'll populate this door panel that we've called 8500, and it'll populate all the other components that we have named 8500. These ones will obviously be a different image because they're named differently, but the frame will use the same image as the door panel. So you might want to be aware of that as well. I think that works because you can just have an 8500 image that's the same, and people then get that association a lot quicker. Okay, so we've got that locked down, so that's our door panel locked down. Now, within this style, there are several other elements as well within the door panel. Let me just hide this design menu. Once we're out of the designer menu, the limited menu, we can see all the other components of the opening. And that includes basically the elements of the door panel, the glass, the kick, handles and so on. So I want to go and set these. Now, the glass, we have two separate glass configurations. So within the door panel, you can set, let me just minimize this, reduce that. You can set the glass using just the normal single glass element, or you can add our multi-glass component. Just tick there at the moment, we don't want that. And that is a separate component and it's a separate catalogue. So this glass is stored in the panel catalogue, or you can assign a glass that's more detailed and stored in a different catalogue. If I expand here, you'll see we've got basically the component. This is the panel and this is the panel glass. We're not using this aspect because we've just got a single pane of glass in this element, so we can get rid of that and we can set this to off. Now let's just reduce this and go back to our components page where we can see all the components. Okay, now we can do the same with the rest of them. So all the ones we know we're not going to be applying, we can set them to off. You can leave them as custom. They were already off, as in they hadn't been applied. However, when you actually set it to off in the catalogue, then you know for certain it's quality controlled. Okay, so that's our known elements, also the subframe. We'll turn that element off, we're not putting a subframe in. We are going to do some work on the handles though. They have put handles in here, so we've gone in and we've measured those handles and we've chosen a style. So we don't have the exact style that they're using, so we're just going to use a style that's very similar. And we're going to be working on enhancing this aspect. So we've come up with a function that will allow you to do custom geometry handles. So you'll be actually able to get in there and shape up your own handle elements. And this will allow us to do product specific elements like real life components. So we will put that in here eventually, hopefully within the next month or so, but it's not here at the moment. So we're going with this handle. As I said, we've checked the sizes and positioning of those elements. So we're creating that handle and then we're going to upload that to the database. So handle 1, call it the 8500 and upload that, download it and select or lock. Okay, and now that we've got that element, we can apply it also to our second handle. Okay, that's our handles done. So let's go back here. So we've basically got all our styling set up for this element, and we've got all our styling set up for the overall assembly, and we've also got our panel arrangement and sizes. The only thing we haven't actually done is put the correct operable element in there. So let's do that. At the moment we're working with a 4-panel sliding door, and this is how we're going to name it. So we're going to name it based on the panels. So it's the 8500 series, and it's fixed left, left, left. So that's the configuration we need. So we just go to our door, our multi-sliding door. We can select it here, or we could go into the operable elements page, and we can select it down in here. So we go to doors, multi-slide. It's probably already set up the way we want it. Yep, so 0 panels on the right, 4 panels on the left, and the first panel is fixed. That's irrelevant because there's no panels there anyway. And then we need to go and have a look at these handles as well. So there's not a handle on every door. So at the moment, we've got our panel configuration correct, and we've got the right element type. So we could go and save this opening because it has all the styles, but we need to just fix these handles. To do that, we actually need to differ the widths and styles between these panels. So we're not going to differ the widths, but we are going to differ the styles. So we click this button, we go to our panel page, go to handles actually. So opening 1, panel 2 of 4 is not going to have any handles on it. So let's just turn these off first. So we want to unlock these. So panel 2 is off. You see the handles disappear from there. You can watch this one disappear. When we do panel 3, go to panel 3, handles off, off. Okay, and then panel 4, the handles are still on, but we want to lock them down to this component. So we lock these back down. Okay, that basically finishes the element. Let's go and place it and have a look. We need to obviously switch the doors around. Should be inward. Just needed a refresh with that, I think. Let's go back into the tool. Now that we know that we've got it looking right, we can start saving the other elements. So we'll go back to this page here, and we'll save this opening configuration that we've got with these styles. So we just do upload, download, and lock. Now we've got a second opening here because we've got the window element above. However, it is just a fixed element. Now we've done our design, we've done our openings. All that's left to do is the fixtures. In this we had basically everything was turned off as far as cover plates and sills and lintels and headers, but we did have casing elements. So first thing I'm going to go turn all these elements off. Then I'm going to go into my internal casing. I'm going to turn it on. So these are the sizes that were set. They're 4" wide, 3/4 inch thick, except for this internal bit is 1 inch with a 1/2 inch offset. And because it's a door, the bottom element is turned off by making it 0. If we put a sill in here, the sill would cut the casing, but we're not putting a sill in at the moment, so we have to make sure we turn that bottom element off. Okay, let's save that as our 8500, upload, download, and lock. Now let's go to our external casing, do the same thing. So we've got our 4 by 3/4, 1/2 and 1, 0 at the bottom, upload, download, and lock. Now just for clarity, the reason I don't call this 8500 casing external or outside and 8500 casing internal is because these are this element's going into the casing external database and the other element's going into the casing internal database. So they don't need to be named based on what component they're relevant to. Okay, that is the actual element complete. We've done all our fixtures, we've done our openings, we've done our design elements as well. As I said, you don't have to lock down any of these things, you can leave them. That's been left as custom for some reason, we need to turn that off. You can leave some of them as custom if they're elements that you want to be editable within this arrangement. So now that I've done this, I'm going to save this assembly, and this is going to be 8500 FLL FLL. So that's the configuration. Put the size in there as well because it's a highlight. There might be another one of these configurations that doesn't have a highlight. So we'll call it the 8508 because it's 8 foot. Upload, download, and lock. Okay, now if we have a look at all these elements, you can see that they've actually been locked by the element. We didn't do the subframe, so that element is not locked. So I'm just going to show all menus here. This little eye shows and hides the menus. So if I do want to put a subframe in here, I could now. I could add any sort of subframe in here to this element and it wouldn't be controlled by this assembly. If I want it to be controlled, I need to set it to something. So if I unlock this, I set this to off, upload, download, and lock. Now that component is locked to its definition. Okay, that is the first complete component, and that is actually going to be the basis for the rest of this range. Let's have a look at it in 3D so we know it's all working the way we want it to be working. Okay, yep, that all looks good. Back to the 2D, and let's start looking at the other elements and working out exactly how we're going to do these ones. Okay, so we've got a few more elements that have this highlight, so I'm going to copy this a few times. So I'll copy it to this one. Okay, now I can go through these and change just a few of the settings to make the differences. With this one, the only difference is that it's 3 panels and it's shorter. So let's just go into here. We need to change the size, so let's unlock that. When we unlock one of these elements, it'll unlock the assembly because obviously you can't have the assembly locked and its subcomponents unlocked. So we've changed the shape and size, and we're going from 12 down to 9. Okay, so we can come in here and we can do this. Now I think I put in a function where if you set these to 0, it reverts to them. So let's just test that. I just want to see what I've done here. Maybe if I set them all to 0. Upload, download, lock. Okay, just make sure it's worked. Yep. Okay, so now we've got that size. You can see it's done a funny thing here. That's because we had the different widths on the door panels. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go to our door panel. So we need to go into our openings. We actually go to the opening element. We want all these elements to be equal, so we'll uncheck that for a second. That'll set them to equal. We'll then set our panels down to 3 panels. We can then check this box once again and then go into our panel settings, or we can go specifically to handles. And we want panel 2 to be off. Okay, so that's our opening 1. So let's go and save that. Let's just minimize this design menu. And this is going to be the 8500 FLL. Upload, download. Now you might notice there's also this sliding door element. So there's a subframe. There's a series of track elements for your sliding doors, basically. Track and little architrave things as well. So as you can see in here, you've got sort of the tracks for the doors, and then you've got little frame elements on the internal and external to sort of cover those tracks as well. So you can put a fair bit of detail in here, and if we did the actual manufacturer's product, we would put their details into this. But for this level of development, we don't need that information. So I'm just going to set this to off so I know it's controlled. And now I'll upload, download, and lock. Now that we've changed the size and we've changed the operable element configuration, we've saved this element as well, so we can go upload, download, and lock. Okay, so now that we've created this element, we can very easily switch between those 2 elements that we've created. And of course back again. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, this one's a little bit different in that it's got a side light. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to divide this element up. So we need to go into our panel arrangement. So we'll just go to the panel arrangement page. We'll just unlock this component, hide that element, and we need to put another element in. So we're going to do equal spaced for now, and then we're just going to set the columns to 2. Uncheck that box. Let's see what the highlight, so they didn't extend into the highlight, so we do not want this aspect on. I'll just increase the size of this interface a little bit. Okay, so I just turned off that element there, and then this element, I want that to be, I suppose it's the transom. That's the dominant thing. And now we want to push this over here. So the whole element is probably divided up into 5 equal parts. So get that down to 2 by 4, so this should be 6, is that correct? Yep. Okay, so that's the rough sizes. They might know the precise sizes, so I can leave that up to them. Okay, so we want to save this panel arrangement, and this, we're going to call it the 8, more like H and S, and 1, because it's just one side light. So upload, we want the sizes locked in this instance. Okay, so we'll lock these sizes to this 12 by 8 overall, or relevant to the 12 by 8 overall, I should say. So upload, download, and lock. Okay, so you can see it's locked those elements. The sizes don't look locked because they're an array element. You can't really lock the whole array element without causing problems. So, but they are locked, as you can see. So that's our overall size. Let's go back, and now the only other element that we need to actually adjust in this is the operable element, because that side light is just fixed glass, so, and it'll be using the same positioning of that glass as we set in the frame element. So now we just need to go in and change this opening. We'll do this in the operable elements page. It is a multi-slide. However, in this case, the panels are all equal because it's going to have 2 panels on either side, and one of those panels will be fixed, and that will therefore be without a handle. Just make sure I was correct in that configuration. Yes, so this is the configuration we're doing here. Now we can save this. So this is our FLRF, or you could just go, what would be the other one? XOOX. Maybe that's a bit more of a common way of doing things, so I'll do that. XOOX. It doesn't follow the other convention that we used, but visibly it makes a little bit more sense. So let's do upload, download, and lock. Let's go back to our components, and we'll save this as our 8S1-X. Upload, download, and lock. So that now completes this element. So as you can see, once you've completed one element and you've got all your styles set up, completing the rest of the elements is actually very efficient. I'm actually going to start with this element in here because it's a little bit closer to the sort. I'm now going to go in. The things I need to change in here is firstly the size. So into our design menu, open up our shape and size. We can go to our designer menu, and some of you may get used to using it even without looking at the view, and therefore being able to see lots of elements at the same time if you like to work like that. I think it's a little bit messy. This menu looks a little bit cleaner and nicer in the joinery tool, which doesn't have quite as many settings, so isn't quite as convoluted. I think I need to adjust the sizing there to push this one down a bit anyway. So you can view many things at once. Now we need to adjust the shape and size of this element. This is going to be 15. Okay, we'll just set all these to 0 so we don't have mins and max. And we'll save this as 8 by 15. Oh, actually it's supposed to be 15 by 8, isn't it? I'm going to have to change that other one. Upload, download, and lock. Okay, so you can work with the panel arrangement here, or you can go to the actual panel arrangement page. If you find it easy enough to work here, I'm just going to unlock that, then by all means do so. In this scenario, we just want to change the number of columns to 3. So I'm actually going to set that to equal, and then change that to 3. And I'm going to uncheck the equal, and I'm going to set these back to about what they were in the other one. To 4.5, to 4.5. Okay, we will actually want to go to our page now because we need to turn off some elements. So in here we need to turn this element off. So we need to first uncheck that because that's making it uniform to the first one. We need to turn that off, and we can change this. Okay, so this is our new arrangement. So this is going to be the 8500H S2 because there's 2 side lights. Upload, download, and lock. Okay, now you can see our operable elements moved into this piece because it was the first one. We need to move it into here. So we'll go to the operable elements page, and we'll change this element to being fixed, and this element will change to door multi-slide. Did I not change this one? Oh, it's probably locked. It is locked, so I have to go into here. This one is what's set, so I have to unlock that, change it to fixed. Okay, now I'm going to set this one, so if I hit set there, and now I want to use the one that we used before, so it's just this 8500, so I can just apply that back to the interface here, and let's just make sure we've got everything done. So everything's locked down. We've got a series of fixed openings. They are not locked down, they're still locked to custom. We could set them to something to control them, but they're fixed to pane, so they don't have any settings really anyway. So that is the next element. Let's just upload this. So this is going to be our S2. Upload, download, and lock. Okay. Move this into position, and the 5/8. So we want something that's as close to this as possible, so we're going to start with this one. Now we don't have to alt click it there because we do have the power of the database, so all we really need to do is select this element, download all the databases to make sure that we've got the latest, and then apply the element that is most similar, which is this FLL. Okay, now we want to unlock that because we don't actually want that exact configuration, and we're going for a 2-panel element this time, so it must be a bit smaller. I can't see the size of it at the moment. It's a 5/8. So very similar to the to when we actually created this element. All we need to do is adjust the size. So we're going to unlock this. Just go into the settings, 5. So we'll call it the 5/8. Upload, download, and lock. And then the only other aspect that changed was the operable element. So let's go to that page. We only wanted 2 elements here, and we need to equalize them. So we need to uncheck the differing widths and styles. Set this to 2, and that is our element. So we'll upload this as FL or XO, which probably would be better. Let's do XO because they might, left or right might be irrelevant. It'll be depending on the way in which they actually place the panel as to whether it's left or right. So just upload that, download, lock. Okay, now we need to remember to save all these as an assembly so it actually is all locked down. So we've got all our design elements. We've got our opening element locked down except for the fixed one, which doesn't need to be. And we've got all our fixtures also locked down. So we can save this as the 8XO, upload, download, and lock. Okay, then there's a series of them without the highlights in them. So I can just basically take a couple of these elements and very quickly generate them. What I want to do now is I want to show you how to bring an image in. So we've created the initial part of their catalogue covering these patio doors, or at least half of them. So we've got a few elements in our catalogue now, and I'm actually want to create some images for these. So I'm going to create those 5 images. I'm just actually going to use these elevations as the images. This is what the clients used to seeing, so it's familiar to them. We've also got a lot of this 8500, so I might just save a general 8500 image as well. And I might even take that from the website. I might just sort of screen grab that little section of it there. So there's that familiarity too. So let's do that. We just do a quick print screen. So I'll go and save these images, and then I'll show you the images, and I'll show you loading them and all that sort of thing, but I won't show you creating them because I'm sure you all know how to create images. Okay, so I've saved these images of the components that I've created. So I set up this one here just to cover all the ones that are named 8500, and then these are the individual ones of those elements that I've created. This is not it. I can delete that. I'll leave it in there for now anyway. Okay, and I've put these in the library, so it's in the Infinite by CADSwift library under the global folder, and I've just created a folder for it. So it's in the library. Now, come back in here and let me just show you quickly. So you can see this element doesn't have an image component. However, if we go to the original page, or if we go to one of the sub pages in there, we do have the image aspect here now. So I've just got to load some images for this. None are appearing at the moment, but you can see they do for the elements that do have images in them. So if I just quickly reload my library, now when we go to the next page, you can see we've got image files. So these are not the best images, they're a little faint, but it gives you an example of how this works. You could darken those images up and make them a bit better. One thing to note is the images are perfect squares, pixels, so it doesn't really matter what size, but if it's 250 pixels wide, then make sure it's 250 pixels high, otherwise it'll start to get all stretched and warped within the interface. Okay, and you can see down here we've got the 8500 series. Let me just unlock this so that things are a little bit easier. So we can see 8500 series selected there, and if we go into our other elements, we haven't put images up for those elements yet. Go into the operable elements, expand on that, and you can see the 8500 series down there for the door panel, and 8500 series down here in my handles as well. So for those that don't know, this page here is basically the same. This was our original page, and then we created a streamlined version of it because the other one was a little bit hard to understand and navigate. So most people will probably work from this page now, and we will try and bring in an image function into here so that you can actually select these elements by images in this interface as well. Okay, so that basically covers setting up your catalogues and how to sort of do this, how to go about it. So now with these catalogues configured, well, at least the start of it, all the client needs to do is basically load this library, and they come straight to this assembly menu, and they can just select any of the components that they want to apply. So they can basically just jump between these. So what I'll do now is I will go and finish off the rest of these components. So there's several other elements to do. There's still a few to do in this range here. And then there's these windows up here, more doors, pivot doors or swing doors with side lights and highlights and the like. But it's basically going to be a repetition of what I've just done. So that'll help you set up your catalogues if you want to do so yourself. Also, if you are having a little bit of difficulty implementing any of our tools that use these catalogues, even if you want specific manufacturers' products in there, we won't do the details unless we engage with the manufacturer. But if you want these sort of catalogues set up for you so that you can really streamline your implementation of these very powerful tools that we create that are a little complex because of what they can achieve, then drop us a line, get in touch, and we'll gladly help you out. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching.